Yeah, great question. So the traditional sense, not necessarily, but I think when Watson becomes your assistant that helps you get work done, you need to be able to teach your assistant how to do things for you, right? And it needs to be able to work in different applications that you work in.
Mm-hmm.
You're in HR, it could be Workday, could be Salesforce, it could be your ERP system. So there's many different systems and records or different tools, but the ability to talk to Watson and have Watson go do something for you inside one of these systems is essentially a skill. Now, how do we do that? That can be through.
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Bots and Thoughts, the Hyperautomation podcast, sponsored by Salient Process. I'm your host, Jimmy Hewitt, aka Mr. Automation. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of Bots and Thoughts. I'm so excited to bring you this special guest, my friend Ben Mandelstein, who leads worldwide sales of IBM's AI-powered digital labor platform, Watson Orchestrate. Generative AI, custom large language models, sequencing AI, and automation AI technology has arrived at the confluence with mainstream demand for these technologies, as evidenced by ChatGPT's meteoric rise to popularity. IBM got this right, matching technology with market readiness. So I am delighted to bring you Ben Mandelstein and IBM Watson Orchestrate. Welcome to the show, Ben. Ben Mandelstein, calling in from the Client Briefing Center in New York City. How are you?
Hey, Jimmy, doing great. I've been a long time listener of the podcast, so glad that I've earned my spot and earned some time here in your busy calendar. I know you've had some really good guests recently, so thanks for having me.
For sure. I was really looking forward to this session too, Ben. There's a lot going on in the technology space. This is a really timely episode with IBM's response to concepts like generative AI and digital labor, something that you've been living and breathing for the last, you tell me. As we jump in, for the audience, we've been working together for a while now, Ben, but again, for the audience, who is Ben Mandelstein? What do you do for work? And maybe before that, how's your summer going?
Thanks, Jimmy. And I guess to start off with, we had our big announcement, I think, recently, and I've been traveling every week the last 8 weeks. So it hasn't really felt like summer, but I've been loving getting out and meeting lots of different IBMers, clients, partners. And there's been a great energy around digital labor, generative AI, and some of the latest things we came out with. But to take it back a step, so Ben Mandelstein, been with IBM for 7 years. I've seen IBM transform quite a bit in the 7 years I've been here. I've had a few different roles. Came in as part of the team that was IBM Connexa acquisition around HR technology,
Okay.
and really where IBM looked to infuse AI inside of some different HR tech. That was part of Connexa. Had the opportunity to be a worldwide program manager in our cloud platform brand, which was very unique and interesting. And then about 2 years ago, had the unique opportunity to kind of create this startup inside of IBM, which was Watson Orchestrate. So working alongside the product management team, essentially leading our go-to-market efforts, which is unique. You don't typically see that at an IBM, a dedicated team to go talk to both existing clients, people who weren't our clients. Product did a lot with paid research groups. But a lot of the focus was to make sure that we could really build Watson Orchestrate to be something that everyone can use, not just large, giant companies. But we wanted to make digital labor something that could be adopted at scale, not just something, like in the past, some of the best automation technologies might have only been adopted by the large organizations with massive budgets. But that's been a big focus for the entire really 2 years of Orchestrate.
I love that. You mentioned digital labor. Why don't you give us a broad kind of overview of what that means, digital labor, generative AI, just describe that terrain for us, maybe the circumstances leading up to why everybody in America and around the world is talking about that now. Um, and if you could, maybe answer as if you're talking to a business person for starters. And then I might ask you to do the same kind of terrain overview of talking to a technologist. But for now,
Sure.
business
Yeah.
person, broad brushstrokes on generative AI and digital labor, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And from a business perspective, I think all of us are being asked to do more and to try to figure out how we can be more productive. While all of us have this tedious manual work on our plate, I know I do personally. I have a lot in the past in some of my other roles in IBM as well. So it's not unique to any company, but everyone's trying to be more productive, get more out of their workforce. While we've seen a massive shortage of the people who have the right skills to fill the right role. And so this was something that I think blossomed during the pandemic. You heard great resignation, a lot of companies struggling to hire and get the right talent. And while some people thought, okay, after the pandemic, this will go back to normal and we'll be able to hire the right people and we'll be okay. What we've actually seen is from all the research we're doing, is it's actually going to get worse and it's not going to get better. And it wasn't specific to the
Perfect.
pandemic, but there's this massive shortage of people who have the right skills to do the right roles. So I think it provides an amazing opportunity for digital labor to help assist us to be more productive. And what does that mean? So what is digital labor? Essentially, in the past, we've had, bots like RPA bots and we've had chat bots. But, the RPA bot is, you've been prescribed it to handle one process really well. But sometimes you have more nuance. There's more back and forth with the human that needs to happen, and you need to be able to handle more variance. And so sometimes RPA doesn't necessarily work in some of those use cases.
Yeah, they can
Um,
be kind of brittle.
yeah, you know more than anyone. You guys build a lot of different bots and actually implement those solutions. You understand, where they're very useful and what the limitations are.
Mm-hmm.
And then from a chatbot perspective, it's great at answering questions. We use them inside of IBM, like Ask HR, but it kind of stops there, right? It answers the question, but it can't actually help you get something done. And so essentially, a few years back, it started as a research concept. But what if you could just talk to Watson in natural language and it could actually help you get work done? So when you look at your day, you look at kind of the manual repetitive work that's not exciting, it's not adding value, it's just something that has to be done. What if Watson could do that for you? So that was the kind of concept behind it. In fact, our CEO Arvin presented it, I think, a couple years back, even while it's still in research. And I believe we had some early conversations with you and your team at Salient back then, just
Mm-hmm.
giving us some early feedback on the solution. So we came a long way since then. And I think what we're finding is that with generative AI, a lot of business users who weren't technologists, who aren't technical, maybe you've heard of AI, they thought it was a buzzword. They're really interested in AI and automation right now more than ever, thanks to ChatGPT, right? I mean, everyone's heard about ChatGPT, whether you use it or not. It's all over the news. People
Fastest
are talking.
growing app ever.
Yeah,
100 million users in, I forget, a very short time period. But yeah,
right.
ChatGPT, everybody's heard of it for sure.
So people are like, oh, well, could I use ChatGPT to do this for me? Could I do it to, in many ways, it's a black box and there's not explainability and there's questions on how safe it is. But the thing that it did great is it got people thinking in a creative way how they could apply generative models and automation technology to solve business problems. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think we're at this kind of perfect inflection point of there's a massive need. Many organizations, right, that don't have the right people with the right skills and they're trying to plan for the future. And just hiring is not alone going to be good enough. So we have that at the same time that we have all this interest around generative AI, but how can we use it in a safe way, right? And so
Mm.
with digital labor, one of the major ways we're using foundation models is to actually sequence the micro automations together, or the steps in a process, to where it can actually handle more complex tasks. So instead of being very prescriptive, like with RPA and saying, here's the steps A through Z, right? You could have an RPA step, you could have an API call, and the sequencing AI can actually sequence those steps together all through a conversational experience. So to the end user, it can kind of look like magic if they don't understand what's happening behind the scenes. IBM were very big on explainability, though, so we don't want it to be magic. We want to tell you exactly how it happened,
Mm.
how our foundation models are watching user patterns over time, and that's actually how your digital labor gets to know how you like to work and makes better recommendations on what you'd like to do next. Does that help from a business perspective?
Oh yeah, that's great. While we're on in the business world, could you take a step back on explainability? Define that for our audience. Why is that important, and how does Watson Orchestrate accomplish explainability?
Yeah, absolutely. So explainability is essentially understanding how the AI came up with the answer. And so
Mm.
when you look at something like a ChatGPT, I use it myself. I write my wife poems with ChatGPT, and it's fun. It's a tool.
I don't think she'll be listening to the podcast unless she's a big hyperautomation girl. I don't know. Your
Uh,
secret's safe with me.
uh, but I can't see from ChatGPT why it chose that analogy, or why did it
Mm.
pick this certain structure in the poem, right? How did it come up with this answer? In a lot of ways, it's a black box. It's fun to play with. Um, for us, we are really big on causal AI, or explainability, where we're able to say, this is how the AI came up with its answer, and this is the level of confidence that it has. And we've been doing this for many years, even when Watson beat Jeopardy. This is exactly what was happening behind the scenes. If you think about Jeopardy, there's
Mm.
a topic, you have to having to figure out what the question is. That was many years ago, right? And they had to have a certain level of confidence that this is the right question. Um, so
Yeah, I remember.
having explainable AI is very important. And then what we've launched with Watson X is the ability to actually work with a company to create their own large language model, right? So ChatGPT is just one model. We've announced our partnership with Hugging Face, which I believe I read a news article. Hugging Face has 100,000 large language models. And so ChatGPT is great at starting the conversation, but it's just one model. And so one of the things IBM's doing is working with companies to determine what's the right data set to train the model. How big does the model need to be?
Mm-hmm.
And there's all these factors that really determine the accuracy, the explainability, and lowering the latency, and some running some of these models for different uses, business cases.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're throwing out some technical terms there, which I love, and half of our podcast audience does as well. Let's get into that. What are some of the key capabilities and components if you were to pop the hood on Watson
Yeah.
Orchestrate? What would you see?
Yeah, yeah, great question, Jimmy. And as you guys know, RPA is very useful. So robotic process automation is very useful for many different lines of businesses. Very useful for solving things where you may not have a good API to use. And
Yep.
so when
And
we built
also,
Orc,
everyone seems to have RPA already deployed within their business.
absolutely. So an agnostic RPA strategy, but providing IBM RPA was a core part of our strategy with Orchestrate. And then also App Connect. So many people may not have heard. It's basically IBM's iPaaS solution. We have over 130 different things that already have out of the box connections, pre-built integrations, and we're able to leverage all of those inside of Orchestrate through App Connect and make it easier to connect to other applications. So whether you're calling an API,
Uh-huh.
whether you're leveraging an RPA bot, we're able to pull multiple automations together and sequence them to complete a task. So those are two
Okay,
things that
so
we think. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, just keeping score so far. Under the covers, we've got a an agnostic RPA approach where if you have RPA already, use it. If you don't, you've got IBM RPA. You've got API connections with App Connect, 130 pre-built connectors to, let's call it, businesses' most common
Yeah.
applications out there. You've
And
got an
anything with open API spec, we could easily connect to and turn that into an automation inside of Orchestrate, which we call a skill. So we want to make sure we
let's
define
talk
it.
about that.
Yeah.
Uh, is it fair
So
to say that API connections in the traditional sense are skills, or how would you define a skill?
yeah, great question. So the traditional sense, not necessarily, but I think when Watson becomes your assistant that helps you get work done, you need to be able to teach your assistant how to do things for you, right? And it needs to be able to work in different applications that you work in.
Mm-hmm.
You're in HR, it could be Workday, could be Salesforce, it could be your ERP system. So there's many different systems and records or different tools, but the ability to talk to Watson and have Watson go do something for you inside one of these systems is essentially a skill. Now, how do we do that? That can be through an API call, or that could be through robotic process automation, or other things too. IBM workflow tools, other automation tools. Essentially, anything with that API, we can turn that into a skill where something Watson's able to do to help you.
Okay, cool. So as you're using your natural language to interact with Watson Orchestrate, you ask it to do something for you that normally you would have to do manually,
Mm-hmm.
low value, tedious task. However many things you can ask your digital assistant to do, those are skills.
Absolutely.
Are
I know you've
there
had a
out of the
lot of.
box? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, it's okay. I was going to say, I know you've had a lot of really good episodes on process mining and digital twins.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think of some of those bottlenecks in your process that you've identified, especially in some of these more like line of business processes that are human intensive, you have a lot of people involved and a lot of variables. Those are really good places where you can leverage digital labor and Watson Orchestrate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and build skills around all those things. I'm curious, are there out of the box skills, and how easy is it for a user, be them business or technological, to build incremental skills?
Yeah, yeah, great question. And a big part of our strategy with Orchestrate is to have a catalog of out of the box skills.
Mm-hmm.
And we have started with HR and talent acquisition just because IBM HR is using it widely. And we realize there's this massive problem in companies being able to hire the right talent. So we did start pre populating a lot of pre built skills there, and we're expanding into procurement, finance, some pre-built sales tech related skills, personal productivity, and then partners, right? Like you guys are a great partner of IBM. Many of our partners are like, hey, we have this set of clients with this unique problem, and we think that if we can automate this problem for this set of clients and do that in a conversational experience, like that would be a great skill we could build. So we even have some partners that want to have a private catalog, have private skills or automations just for their clients, and there's other partners that they'd love to have that on our public catalog that actually can get them exposed to the IBM network and all of the clients that we work with.
Like a
uh,
marketplace.
Exactly. So it really is a
Oh,
great
wow.
way to build an ecosystem of innovation
Yeah.
and really get a lot of ideas flowing. Because I think that's where we see great use cases that come out is by talking to partners and clients. It's not just IBM building out our catalog, but how does our ecosystem curate a catalog of pre-built skills that'll help people get value day one, right? So a lot of the clients that have
Yeah.
purchased Orchestrate, we get them up and running within a day, and they're able to use the out of the box skills that next day and get value. While we can talk to them
It's
about
great.
other things that they can build and custom skills. There's stuff they can use right away. Being SaaS, they don't have to provide infrastructure. Um, they're able to start using it right
Um, Very cool that clients can buy Watson Orchestrate on a Monday and start getting value out of it on a Tuesday. SaaS and out of the box skills is how. What about incremental skills? What about skills that are unique to that client? How do they go about building incremental custom skills?
Yeah. And I think that's where the light bulb idea really happens is because IBM, we've used it a lot in HR. A lot of the clients we're talking to may start there, some of the out of the box skills.
Mm-hmm.
But when they realize that, hey, an HRIS or HCM like Workday is really just a system of record, it's not that much different than our ERP system or our Salesforce environment. And really, this could be used for any line of business, not just these things that IBM has shown us and that they use. That's when we really start to see their wheels turning, and we see them, they see that they can not only get value quickly, but they can continue to use Orchestrate as an innovation and automation platform that can scale across each of their different lines of businesses and integrate with the tools they use today, right? So it's not about ripping and replacing and changing up their processes, but it's just a conversational AI layer that can work with their tech stack and tools they have. Where there's bottlenecks and inefficiencies, Orchestrate can help really provide value and instantly be plugged into those processes.
What would you say if you are presented with the following scenario? It's a medium to large company. They are a few years into their RPA journey. They've got 50 to 100 bots in production, a nice COE pipeline factory, whatever you want to call it. Uh, they are now learning about IBM's digital labor conversational AI platform with Watson Orchestrate. They understand that Watson Orchestrate can be the conversational layer on top of their existing investment in RPA bots, but they still have a pipeline of bots that have been prioritized, backlogged, and are, in their development cycle. How does skill development with Watson Orchestrate either compete or complement with the pre-existing RPA bot backlog?
Wow, that's an interesting angle on the question. I've heard variations, but I'm not sure I've heard it asked exactly that way. I think where they may have used RPA before exclusively, just because it was the tool in their tool belt,
Mm-hmm.
this might make them think about approaches where it might be a mixture, right, of RPA and maybe, hey, we could actually call this API and have a slightly more reliable overall process that may not break or need as much maintenance. So
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes when you need to mix RPA task, or an RPA with an API call all in one flow. Not that you can't do that. Many RPA tools, there's ways to integrate via API, but doing that in a great UI and a friendly environment, I think that's where I think we could really see some really cool things happening.
Okay, so it sounds like a little bit of co-opetition, right? Where
Yep.
you are complementing existing
Mhm.
investments. You're not trying to rip out, what this RPA COE owner has just invested the last 3 years of their life developing. You can keep those, right?
Well, when talking to automation COEs, I think an interesting question I'll ask them are what are some of the bots that aren't being used as much as you thought they would, right? So they listen to the
Interesting.
business. The business said, hey, this is a messy process, and can you build us a bot to do this? They build it, they spend the time, they build the bot, and for some reason, it's not being deployed or used as much as they thought it would. With Orchestrate, we can change the way an end user, business user can interact with that bot and make it more discoverable. And so people in HR may not always be thinking to leverage a bot or know how to use a bot or what all bots can do. But
Yeah. Wow.
if Watson can learn your bot, and it doesn't have to be IBM, right? It could be a UiPath bot, it could be Automation Anywhere bot or Blue
Mm-hmm.
Prism bot. Watson now learns this is what this bot does. This is how this thing fits within a flow of this API call or these other steps, right?
It's kind of
Then
like a like dummy proof RPA where you don't have to know what do each of the 100 bots that my RPA COE has just developed. Like you don't have to learn as a human user what those bots do with Watson Orchestrate. All you need to know is how to articulate the task at hand. And
yeah,
the conversational AI knows what the each of the 100 RPA bots do and can do, and what the combination of them
right,
plus API connections can do using what was it, the API AI API orchestrator.
right.
Um,
And
it
then you think of
kind of dummy
other
proofs.
more so other things like scheduling task and orchestrate, right?
Yeah,
And all of this could be done in RPA, but when you have that natural language way of interacting with it, it can completely change the end user experience. So
100%.
to a technical person, they said, "Oh yeah, well, okay, you connect a chatbot to RPA, but it's more than that, right?" So when the actual end user, you just you talk to Watson, and the actual end user sees this thing just happen. That experience to them is kind of that magical experience. Um, so yeah, I think that's what we've seen is just one of our customers comes to mind in particular, um, where they'd already been on the RPA journey and they'd already built some bots, but where they really got their business users excited is when they saw it coming into this conversational experience, and then like changing how you run your bots, right? You can say, hey, do this task for me tomorrow morning. So it's a different way of interacting with RPA versus doing that in your RPA studio, like doing the telling it when to run there, where you could do it
Mm-hmm.
in natural language.
Yeah, so much
So
better for natural language experience. Oh
yeah.
man. Okay, let's start talking use cases. Ben,
Mhm.
either your favorite real life use case from the clients you've been working with, or you did mention earlier that IBM was client zero for their own HR use case needs. So, whichever one comes to mind, would love to make this that much more real for our audience
Yeah.
out there. What's your favorite use case or two?
Yeah, just because I think the IBM HR team has been around this the longest. They've been a really close partner to us as we've built this and given us great feedback. I'll start there, and then I think there's some other stories that are really interesting too. Um, and when they've been working with chatbots, they've worked with RPA, so they are technologists at heart, even though they're in HR. So John Lester is our VP of HR transformation. He's been kind of our key partner throughout this mission. When they saw this technology, they immediately thought of a certain process in IBM, which is our promotion process. And so it
Promotions.
happens 4 times a year. It's
You get
super
promoted
important.
4 times a year?
I wish,
Just
right?
kidding.
It's really important that we promote our best people when there's a time to that we promote them. They don't leave and go elsewhere, right? And so our past processes, we had 14 HR business partners. They were working with about 2,000 hiring managers purely just in IBM consulting. So that's where we started this in just one area of IBM. And so they were working with over about 2,000 actual managers, right? And so they were pulling information from multiple systems like Workday. They were working in spreadsheets to say, okay, for this manager, here's the people on their team that are eligible based on this list of criteria on what it takes to be promoted. And then if they're going to be promoted, what's the salary range that we're going to recommend or let this manager know, here's the eligible range that you can promote them to. And it was a 10-week process, and it may not sound that bad on paper, but you're a process guy, you're a process expert, and it was extremely labor intensive. And some of the
Oh yeah.
bottlenecks were just chasing down the hiring managers and getting responses from them. And so we said, why are we having these 14 really smart, great people spend all their time just chasing these hiring managers down, working in spreadsheets? We created a hero. We cleverly named them, and IBM HR decided that every HR use case will have HR in the name. So Hero is their first one. But Hero
Ah,
actually
I see.
talks to the manager. They'll tell them who on their team is eligible for promotion and a conversational experience. They'll be able to say, okay, if that's the person you want to promote, here's the salary range that we would recommend. Then the manager chooses who they promote and they choose what salary, right? It's not AI making the choice. It's AI pulling information from multiple systems all into one friendly UI. And then when the human makes the choice, automating that choice actually getting executed. And so we were able to shorten that process from 10 weeks down to 6 weeks. More importantly, we were able to cut out 85% of the human back and forth follow up. So these
Who likes
14,
that human back and forth follow up?
not me. Uh,
Nobody.
and so what was really interesting was talking to these 14 people involved and John Lester, and there were some like interesting outcomes that they weren't even planning on,
Hmm.
like comparing the choices that the manager actually made versus the recommendations, and looking at things like
Hmm.
diversity and promotions, and are we seeing the right equal representation? And these are some of the more strategic things that they wanted to focus on, right? We're IBM, we want to be a leader and we want to be innovative.
Mm-hmm.
But because we were so caught up in the tedious processes that were mundane, repetitive, we weren't able to be that strategic thought leader, right? So I think that's really a big thing that we see is it's not just about automating something, but it's about freeing someone up to do more high value work, right? And making them enjoy their job, making
Yeah.
celebrating innovation, celebrating things where you're really actually driving business impact, not just completing your busy work.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, how did the expected results differ from the actual results across whatever dimension?
I think the funniest thing was just the jealousy it created, is because there was a lot of
Go
other
on.
use cases that were being discussed, and
Mm-hmm.
we picked that one, and then everybody was like, "Hey, me next! Like this is why didn't
Yes.
we choose my idea?" So now we actually have 12 pilots that HR is using for Orchestrate, and it has this almost
Mm.
like grassroots viral growth,
Yeah.
really coming from the actual users who are benefiting from it, not from the top down from executives.
Mm.
And so some of the other things, I actually just got notified. One of the guys on my team, he took a client out to dinner and accidentally didn't unselect his per diem. And Sherlock is our expense investigator that notified me that that happened, and it'll correct that and educate the employee like how it should happen. But Sherlock is another one. Again,
There's
it
an
has
H
HR in
and
the
an R.
name.
Yeah, look
Yeah.
at that. Sherlock.
Charlie
Yep.
manages, like in IBM, we do a lot of badging. So Charlie is what they use to manage all the courses. So oftentimes they'll have to merge courses or courses will get rescheduled or moved around. And this is a lot of work if you think of all the people who are registered to a course. And they've basically built skills specifically for assisting that process. So if you think of any process or any process mining or any process that any of your guests have talked about, all of these things can become use cases for digital labor. And you're not trying to say that this is like a tool for everything. You want to make sure it's the right tool. And there's definitely cases where you probably just want to use robotic process automation, or there's different strategies. But I guess my point is, it's just this kind of like grassroots innovation that's
Yeah.
spearheaded out of people seeing it in action.
So we've got Hero for promotion, we've got Sherlock for expense reports, and we've got Charlie for badge assignment and management. Are those skills or are those use cases? And if so, how would you delineate between a skill and a use case if they aren't the same?
Yeah, so I would say that those are digital labor, or that's a digital employee essentially that has a
Okay.
set of skills. So there's
Okay.
multiple skills that Sherlock needs, or multiple micro automations Sherlock needs to be able to help assist in that process.
Okay.
So that's where we find like there's so like in IBM we have so many different departments, so many different areas of our business. So we kind of think about, okay, if we were going to hire a person or you know hire digital labor to assist this department, what are the tools that this department uses? What are the types of things that it would need to be able to help do to assist the people in the department? So I'd say it's a combination of skills that would help it to be able to serve the people in the department. Right, use case, yeah, I think would I guess it is similar to a use case. Like a digital labor would be a use case, which would have
Mm-hmm.
multiple sets of skills. But we've also seen clients that might just have one digital labor that can tackle lots of different use cases.
Yeah.
So depends on how you want to
With many
deploy.
skills. Seems like
Right.
use case is kind of becoming an outdated term here. We've got digital laborers that have skills that use combinations of those skills with AI powered API orchestration to get different types of work done. Um, Never used the phrase use case in that.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Use cases. Were there any other use cases you wanted to share? I think those are fabulous examples, and anyone listening in the HR department probably chomping at the bit to learn more, see it. By the way, while we're here, if people do want to learn more and see it, how would you recommend they do that?
Yeah, yeah, great question. We've been traveling all over doing lots of events. I'm actually happen to be in one of the IBM innovation studios, which we like to host clients. We do some immersive AI workshops and activities, which have been really fun for anything from students in school to companies we work with to partners. So, yeah, reach out to me. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so please reach out on LinkedIn if you're interested in setting something like that up. We're also doing things like that with Salient as well. So in partnership with Salient.
That was a bit of a loaded question. Reach out to Ben Mandelstein or myself, Jimmy Hewitt, on LinkedIn. We'll be happy to
Yeah.
show you Watson Orchestrate.
Yep. But to
Okay.
get back to the other part of your question on use cases, I've been patient. So in the back of my head, there's been things I've been dreaming about, right?
Oh, yeah.
I've been patient because the HR team has been such a great partner, and but now I'm excited to say that we're actually going to be leveraging this for eventually it'll be all sellers in IBM, but we've started the pilot program. And so we've started already interviewing sellers on what are the use cases, where do you think this could help you, what are your bottlenecks, what are the things you
Mm.
don't enjoy doing so you can spend more time with your clients. And it's been amazing. It's been as sellers are learning about Orchestrate through all the enablement stuff we're doing, they're thinking about how they can actually use it in their day-to-day life and apply it to
Wow.
help them be more successful. And the other one that actually really hits home for me. So I have dysgraphia. I am neurodivergent, and I don't
Mm.
think people necessarily talk about this enough. Um, but I think there's a tremendous opportunity for technology, not just Watson Orchestrate, but some of the generative technology and automation to help neurodivergent people. Um, just like, so for example, when I was in school, I got pulled out of class in English, and I'd get extra time on certain activities. There were some written papers that other people, would write by hand. My accommodation was I was able to use my laptop, right?
Hmm.
So using your digital assistant or your digital labor could be the next thing to help neurodivergent people. So maybe it's ADHD and you want a reminder of when a reminder that something's coming up. And so Watson Orchestrate, it's not just about a business process, but it can be more personal than that. It can be how can it help you personally? And the sequencing AI is actually looking at your personal log of your usage of Orchestrate and is actually learning and making recommendations based on you. So not just your company. I think that personal level and how it can help me, like personally, as someone with dysgraphia, and many other people in the neurodivergent community in IBM, I think that's just something that I think that makes me happy just to be able to make an impact as well. So at the end of the day, I think that's where IBM can actually make an impact, make a change on the world. And I think that, yeah, just being parts of those types of projects are what gets me really excited.
It's not a small problem either. Something like 15 to 20 people, humans are neurodivergent, right?
Yeah,
They
roughly like
either,
20% of the population. So it's,
yeah, either don't
um,
know that they are just general struggling, or they do and they just don't have the equipment to accommodate that neurodivergency. So come on out of your neurodivergent shells, and we've got a fabulous piece of technology here that can help. Good for business, good for people.
yeah,
Throw a
absolutely.
trademark on that. Just kidding. Well, thanks for sharing that, Ben. I
Yeah,
really appreciate the uh, the element there that you don't always expect to learn about. Good for business. Obviously, the productivity gains are clear. The what was it? Explainability is also really good for business. Uh, Bias confirmation or not, good for business. The diversity and inclusion angle that can be trained on is good for
yeah,
business. Um, Good for people. Just makes your life easier, like you said
yeah,
earlier. It removes the worst part of your week, your expense report. It removes the worst part of your day, right? The follow ups, the calendar management, right? I'd imagine that a lot of sellers out there are asking for skills around sending follow ups and
yeah.
booking meetings and confirming meetings, right? I feel like I spend 33% of my day doing those three things.
Or
Uh,
today's June 22nd, and it's about the end of the quarter. And every quarter, we have an entire process of sellers moving opportunities and updating the status and all the management chains that are asking questions
oh
about
my
them.
gosh, updating your CRM.
So
Get out of
imagine if
here.
you could just have Watson say, hey, I see it's about to be the third quarter. Do you like me to update these 10 ops that are in the lower stage but have a close date of the second quarter? Like you can
Mm,
program that, that type of intelligence, time saving, right? Is that you shouldn't be asking your sellers to spend hours cleaning up their Salesforce, right? You should be
that's
providing
huge.
technology that allows them to be spending their time with your clients. So I
Why do
think
I feel
that's what,
like yeah, I think I'm going where you're going. Why do I feel like we're in kind of a watershed moment here on how work gets done at large? Every company has a sales force, unless they've figured out how to conduct business without a sales force, which maybe some e-commerce companies have and are doing. But by and large, every company has a sales force. Every company has an HR department. Every Salesforce and HR department are doing these tasks manually today. Um, yeah, why do I
and
feel like
every,
we're at?
almost every company has automation technology, right? Made these investments, and now they can pull all of them together in one UI and really get more value out of investments they've already made.
Very cool. Well, hey, we're coming up on it, Ben. Lightning round. Couple questions for you. First off, is there anything that you were hoping to chat or talk about that I didn't ask you, that you want to maybe breathe some oxygen into?
Yeah, no, I think again, this might be a little bit of a plug, but Salient is one of our best partners when it actually comes to building custom skills and custom bots. So I was hoping you might share a little bit on your thoughts on how you see Salient helping clients bring their ideas come to life for skills or automations for Watson Orchestrate.
A question for the question asker. I like it, Ben. Sure. Yeah. No, I do think about this. I'm excited to get into the market with Watson Orchestrate. Actually, your team and I have started those client conversations already, and we have several more coming up. Um, it's early stages. We're in the demonstrating, product market fit at the moment. But in the coming weeks, if not sooner, I'd expect us to start implementing and building these skills. So, what does that look like, and what's our role in this marketplace? We want to build skills. We want to help our clients be successful. And if there's non proprietary elements of these skills that can be captured and made available to others in the marketplace, it kind of feels like we're a part of a really important open source project almost. You know,
Yeah,
we contribute to open source communities and forums already, like APQC, IPQC. These are productivity and process standardizing organizations that we contribute to. Why not contribute to the growing ecosystem of digital labor skills? Um, that's really how I see us playing a role in similar ways that we are with our RPA clients, our case management clients, our workflow clients, helping train them, develop them, implement them. Although the unique aspect here is that reusable skill
yeah,
element that does not currently exist in how we're helping our customers, and especially if we're talking revenue shares for us as a company and our clients. I'm sure there's a cool, revenue share element to this that show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. If IBM is paying partners and clients to develop these skills and contribute to the community, then I'm sure that's only going to be ramped up if there's a revenue share element to this.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's how I see us contributing to the cause.
Yeah. Also, I know you guys build some really complex RPA bots for some of your clients. And I think you can, some analogy I heard was thinking of like a monolithic application, right? And it's a one big giant application, and companies have taken microservices approach
Yeah.
to break that apart into small parts you can work with. And I think of like RPA could be a big bot where you could break that apart into pieces of that process,
Yes.
teach the AI what each of those pieces do, and then use the sequencing AI to actually
Yes.
string those pieces together. And then when you have one piece break because something changed, you don't have to re-engineer the whole bot,
Yeah.
right? You can, that one piece, you need to make that update, right? But Watson's able to actually sequence different bots and API calls. And I just think the art of the possible and what you can automate opens up even more than it already was.
I absolutely love that kind of mental model, especially for our clients and others who have significant investments in automations, whether that's with IBM RPA, UiPath, Automation Anywhere, Microsoft, Power Automate, Power BI, that are, either small, medium, or large t-shirt size bots, uh, what if they were extra small bots? What if they were that much more modular? What if we did apply this microservices approach that we have, been doing for 20 years on these legacy monolithic applications to your automation fabric,
Yeah.
and using the sequencing AI to do more with your existing bots than you ever, could imagine. Uh, just a lovely mental model for what Watson Orchestrate can do for companies already investing in automation, RPA.
And they're ahead of the game, right? They're going to be able to
Yeah.
use a technology like Orchestrate faster, get more value quicker because of the previous investments they've made in automation.
Yeah.
So, to answer, I think you've asked it a few times throughout the podcast, but I think they're in a great position. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be a tremendous value they can get out of incorporating some of their existing automation into this comprehensive tool that can orchestrate across RPA, API, any automation.
Yeah. Um, okay. What else is left? What are you most excited about in terms of the next 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months with regards to where this product is headed?
Yeah, I think one of the other big products IBM came out with is Watson X, which for those who are less familiar, is really IBM's ability to work with clients to create their own large language model. So ChatGPT is just one model. But when you think about different large language models can be used for different use cases or different parts of your business, right? And you want that because they're trained on a different data set. You want a smaller model, cost less to run it, lower latency, and it's more accurate. So you want small models that are precise for different use cases. There's definitely times where you want a big, giant, huge model, but a lot of times you want these small models. And then from an IT perspective, you need to set governance and which model you use. Because a lot of the business users who are used to ChatGPT are used to this black box, just one model. They speak into it, it gets a result. But they're not thinking about the data set and all these things. So I guess to my point is where Watson X and Orchestrate come together, right? And Orchestrate is the application that end users interact with and touch,
Mm-hmm.
but you can have custom large language models inside of
Sick.
Orchestrate with the governance and compliance that large enterprise clients will need.
I'm glad you brought up governance and compliance. Last lightning round question is, what say you to the undercurrent of this large language model, generative AI, uh, digital labor that, is concerned for where this technology is headed? What, stoppers are in place? What solutions are in place, or just how would you respond to those concerns?
I guess like concerns just in general on generative AI in the workplace, or could you might elaborate?
Yeah, so I follow the general AI concerns from a distance, so I'm not an expert on this topic, but singularity is one that comes to mind. Biases are others
Mhm.
that come to mind. Quality of information would be a third, to
Yeah.
which you have explainability, citing your source, right? Where did you
Mhm.
get this piece of information from? Um, just the general, like, oh, I don't want, this, I don't want to move too quickly in this AI direction type of
Yeah.
concerns.
I think where I've heard companies ask um, is who's responsible for the outcome? Is it the company that generates it? Is it, you know, is it the client or is it the technology? And so a lot of companies are having these conversations. And so I think the processes that touch clients, I've heard people be more reserved on. So
Mm-hmm.
external use cases, where I think internal processes people are willing to try things that are a little outside of their comfort zone because they see these amazing leaps in productivity and cost
Yes.
saving. And they can, it's kind of a weighing the liability versus the productivity and the increases. So they think that trying some of these generative AI tools for internal use cases, one, that's safer. But I think with Orchestrate, where we use generative AI out of the box, is sequencing automations, which you're providing. Here's the next step Watson would recommend. You're not doing it, so you always have that person in the loop that can say, "Oh no, that's not what I'm trying to do." Right. So that gives like the generative AI is giving you a suggestion on what you want to do next. It's not doing it for you or making that happen. So we think that's a pretty safe place. And then generating utterances for training them natural language processing. And even then, we have a human in the loop. So you might, type in a few ways you would talk to Watson to invoke a skill or automation happening, and we use generative AI to come up with many others.
Hmm.
Even then, you have a human in the loop, and you can check and spot check and say, no, I would never say that. Like that doesn't make sense. So that's where we've focused and where we've started. And
Sure.
I think there's definitely other clients that are a little more aggressive and are willing to take risks because they see amazing, amazing disruption opportunities and huge, um, huge ways that this can enhance their business. So yeah, there's all kinds of clients with different risk aperture, but that's part of our way we can work with them and help them and say, hey, if you want a really safe way to get started, here's some use cases that might be a good fit for you.
Great answer, Ben. We'll take you off the hot seat on that one. 4 good examples for ushering this disruptive technology safely. Maybe start internally before you expose this to your clients. That will help you develop that level of comfort. Incrementally, right? So kind of like the hiring manager, or not hiring manager, just the manager who's giving a promotion, to be presented with the salary range options as opposed to the AI making the salary range decision for that hiring manager, right? Kind of an incremental. So it's internal, incremental. And I really like the Watson X building your own custom large language model as opposed to basing the large language model off of like the public internet.
Yeah.
Where you've got a lot of information, some true, most not. Building your own custom large language models, probably the strongest safeguard to, ushering in this AI safely. And then, what you said about training utterances as well, having the human in the loop for the development process. Again, not an expert, but solid answer. Take you off the hot
Thank
seat.
you.
That's really all I had. Ben, this has been incredibly informative, just as exciting, and I'm super optimistic about not only you and your success, the Watson Orchestrate team's success, but also the clients that are out there adopting it. I'm really excited for folks out there listening to get started with this technology and see where we are in the next 12, 18 months.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks again for having me on. I'd love to come back in the future and maybe give more updates on some of the client stories of some of the exciting projects we're working on. I can't quite talk about them yet, but a lot of exciting stuff.
I'm excited. Thanks again, Ben.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Bots and Thoughts, the Hyperautomation podcast, sponsored by Salient Process. Be sure to never miss an episode by hitting that subscribe button wherever you're listening to this. Don't forget to connect and interact with us. You can find us on Bots and Thoughts' own LinkedIn page. And we're constantly running feedback surveys and ask that if you've made it this far in the episode, show us some love by responding to a survey and following us on LinkedIn. Finally, if you or someone you know would like to be a special guest on the show, we have a nomination form also down in the description for you to fill out. And with that, see you next episode and happy automating.